Yeah, probably like 8th grade year, 9th grade. I kind of started sneaking out of my window because my mom was like, come home at 9. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I want to hang out. I want to be home at 9. Like, who comes home at 9? So she always had this, curfew on me. And I'm like, so, and my mom was, she wore the pants in the relationship, honestly. Like,
Okay.
my dad was more like, whatever your mom says. And I'm like, why can't it be whatever you say? Like, why? Like, okay. But so every time, we'd have to ask my mom, and she was kind of always tough on us. So, I don't know if y'all remember, on Sunday nights, we used to cruise Military Drive in the South Side. All the cars would line up, and you would just cruise up and down Military, just people hanging out. So me and my friends, like, we're like, yeah, let's go to Military. So here we are, like 8th grade, 9th grade. She would take off in her mom's car and she would pick me up.
I was going to say, who had the car?
Yeah, she would steal her mom. I was with their dad for 5 years.
Oh, okay, for a while.
Yeah,
you say their dad. Did you have another child with him?
So then I had my second son. I had my second son, Joel. So I had my son when I was 18, and then I dropped out of high school. I dropped out my senior year. I was like 3 months shy off graduating, but it got real hard. Dealing with a preemie because I had him early.
Oh, okay.
So he had complications. So I was young, and I was trying to deal with that. And my mom was she was there for me, but she wanted me to take on that full responsibility because she's like,
you need to do it on your own.
You need to do it on your own. You got yourself in this situation. You have to do it. So, I had to step up. So I was like, okay, well, I have to do what I have to do. He had a lot of, specialist appointments and stuff because he was born really early. He only weighed 3 pounds. I would just tell him why do you do this to me? Like, all the relationships that I've been through already, like they've all failed. And then here I am again with you. And then you're like pushing me away. Like you're treating me this way. Like why? And he would just tell me, well, I'm not ready to settle down. Like I'm not ready. I want to do, I still want to do my own thing. Because he was a big, partier. Like he loved to go out and party and drink. And I did too. But then part of me was more like, I wanted to be with him. So I kind of pushed that to the side. And I'm like, well, I want to be with you. Like, or why don't we do it together? And he was like, well, yeah. But I guess he didn't want his like side chicks to see. So he was like,
You're cramping his style.
Yep. So he would kind of just like, nah. So he would do the great escape. Like he would come and try to hurry up and grab his stuff. But as soon as I would open the door, like getting home, I could smell like the whole bottle of cologne. I'm like, man, I was like, that was hard watching him go through that. Just from one day to the next, one day being normal to the next day, like your whole world being like torn up, like upside down. Like he just called one day and he was crying. I'm like, what the heck? Like what happened? Like, what's the matter? And he's like, I don't know. I can't stop crying. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, just stop crying. And he's like, I can't. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, it's just this feeling I have. I can't shake it off. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, what's bothering you? He really didn't want to tell me too much. So, and I guess we started kind of not drifting, but he was always at church, like constantly, like on Wednesdays, on Sundays. There was outreach, there was stuff going on at church. So I started seeing him, being more involved. And I was like, what the heck? Don't forget you have me, like I'm still here and stuff. So he's like, I told you, like, I'm not playing, like I'm done. Like, I don't want to do any of that stuff anymore. Like, I'm completely done with it. Like, God saved me. Like, and this is what I want to do. Like, I want to go to church. And he's like, you can come with me. Like, you come. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, that's for you, not for me.
Yeah.
So I was battling some stuff in my mind, and I was just kind of going through it, but I didn't really say too much. I didn't really express it. I just kind of held it in. And I was just like, man, I'm tired of this. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, living 2 different lives is just insane. It's tough. It's time consuming. It was hard on me with trying to work, raise kids. I was trying to still be there for Mike, and I was just like, it's hard. It's hard living a double life. I'm like, I don't know how people can live double lives. That's hard. I'm like, I can't do this. So it was really, really tough going through that. So I was just like, you know what? I'm completely done. I was like, God, I'm done. I'm ready. And it was more on my time and God's timing, not Mike's timing, because he was
Welcome back to another episode of LifeSpeaksPodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to give a shout out to the Choosing Hope Foundation. Go to the website choosinghopefoundation.org. See what they're doing over there, man. Wrapped around prison ministries, just doing big things out there. Check it out if you want to donate, or if you just want to see, or if you just want to just check it out and see what can happen. Hey, just see it, see what can happen. Check out LifeSpeaksPodcast.com and be up on the info about our podcast. And thank you so much for watching. If you want to donate, you have an option on there. Next, the Potter's House, GRA.com with our church, the Universal Church in Universal City, Greater Randolph area, 2025 Universal City Boulevard. Come and check us out, see how God's moving. Let's check out the website. Once again, it's thepottershousegra.com. And, man, just see how God is just moving over there. And it is awesome. Like, subscribe to our podcast, ring the bell so you get all the notifications. And thank you so much for joining us.
I can try, but if it's bad, I'm going to have you redo it. Hello, once again, we're back with our Life Speaks podcast. I'm your host, Liz, and your other host. Okay, you do it. Why can't I be the host? Why do all of a sudden I like?
That's fine.
If I'm introducing, I'm the host.
You want to switch seats?
No. No. I'm the co-host, Liz. This is the host, Daniel.
We're both hosts. We're both co-hosts, right? All right. So thanks for joining us today. We have another good episode for you. We have the wife of last week's episode. So we have a lot of follow-up questions.
Yes.
So we'll get into it.
Miss Teresa.
Yes, Miss Teresa. Okay. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Go ahead and pull the mic a little closer to you if you can.
Is that good?
Or speak a little louder.
Okay.
Okay. So like you saw with your husbands, we'll just go chronologically through your life and kind of start from the beginning, and then we'll ask questions along the way. Obviously, like I said, there's going to be questions that I'm curious about from Mike's interview. So when we get there, we'll talk about that. But let's go ahead and go back to your childhood. Kind of explain your upbringing.
My childhood, it was pretty good. I lived both with my parents, my mom and dad. They both lived in the home. Pretty normal childhood. My parents both worked. I lived with my two sisters. Pretty much, my dad was a truck driver in town. My mom, she was a custodian for Harlingdale district for about 30 years until she retired. But my mom was your typical Hispanic, very tough woman, very strict. She was always on us. She wants to know pretty much everything, where we were at, what time we were coming home, just the normal things. But I had a really good childhood. We were always family, our families were always together. We were never separate. My mom's side has a really, really huge family. My mom is, I don't even know what number sister she is, but she is a family of like 15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I have a ton of cousins. So pretty much they were like my friends growing up. They're like my cousins, but like my friends, because we were with
close.
them. Yeah. We were with them almost every Saturday. Every Saturday it was like party for the adults, and then it would be like party for us, like because I would get to see my family and stuff. So my parents, they drank. My mom, my dad, they wouldn't get like hammered, but my dad pretty much did more of the drinking than my mom, but she drank a little bit here and there. But it was mainly more my dad. But it wasn't like he was an alcoholic, But I mean, other than that, we lived pretty decent childhood. No issues. No drama, no issues. No, my parents pretty much, they kept, adult things away from us, so we didn't know, if there was anything going on. They were very, good at, keeping that secret, to just them. They wouldn't let me and my sister see if there were troubles in the household.
Right.
So we never really saw that. We were both, me and my sister, we were loved by my parents and stuff. My mom, she showed us tough love. But other than that, it was really good. I don't have no complaints about growing up.
Was there religion?
It was religion. Yeah, we were,
Catholic,
but more religious. We, kind of went to mass on Sundays here and there. Okay. My mom would watch it on TV. She had the Virgin Mary candles everywhere. Thunderstorm would come and she's like, "Oh my God, I gotta light the candle." I'm like, "Oh God, okay, Mom." Like, stuff like that.
Was it serious enough for you to do catechism or no?
Yeah, my mom enrolled me in CCD classes when I was younger. So I did, CCD classes, did that probably when I was like 7, 8, maybe. I went to the Catholic church there in Kirby. So I did my CCD there. And then I tried doing my communion. That didn't last long. I actually only did it because I was having a quinceañera and they were like, "Well, if you want to have it here, you have to have your communion." And I'm like, "All right." So I went through the classes and I think I need like 2 more classes to finish, but I had my quinceañera and I never went back. So I never was really into it. It was just, it was too much going on, stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. And I'm like, okay, this is too much. So
it was boring for you.
It was boring. I so,
Did you have an understanding of God and the Bible, of what it said and stuff, or not really?
Not really, because there was so many different names and saints and this and that. And I'm like, oh gosh. So I was just lost. I was just going just to go, my mind was probably concentrating on other things like teen things. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to sit here for my parents. But,
so it never triggered in your mind, like the contradiction of what the Bible says and what your parents were doing on the weekends, partying and stuff like that?
I guess I thought it was normal. Like, I was like, okay, well, everybody's here on Sunday, mass. And then after that, it was like, okay, let's go barbecue and start drinking. And so everybody would just, start drinking. So I thought it was normal. So I was like, all right. So we did that pretty much, for my childhood. But yeah, I never got anything out of it at all.
Okay. So you grew up, obviously it sounds like a pretty close family, typical Mexican family, all the cookouts, the saladas and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, so you seemed like you had a normal childhood then, no drama, no abuse, no crazy stuff you saw, no
crazy stuff. Nope. I mean, other than, my dad being, just drunk, but just a normal party. He wasn't like a crazy drunk. He was a sleepy drunk. Okay. So, kind of walking him inside, helping him take off his boots and stuff, and he would just crash out.
Yeah.
But
then it wasn't all the time either. So it was just like,
yeah. After a while, it got normal. We're like, okay, dad's asleep. So,
So with all the partying and stuff, did you try drinking at a young age?
Yeah, my mom and my dad, they kept some liquor bottles in their pantry. So during summers when my mom and dad were, at work, me and my sister would stay home and our friends would come over and stuff. So we'd sneak our friends in and we're like, man, mom has liquor up there. Like, let's just try shots. So we would, just take, little shots here and there of what my mom had up there, like some old liquor. But it was nothing that I ever got like really stuck on where I was constantly doing it. It was just like, oh, let's just try it. Okay. Like, this tastes horrible. Like, we weren't into it at that time.
Yeah.
So like,
So in your early teen years, did you have any rebellion or anything, or?
Yeah, probably like 8th grade year, 9th grade, I kind of started sneaking out of my window because my mom was like, come home at 9. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I want to hang out. I want to be home at 9. Like, who comes home at 9? So she always had this, curfew on me. And I'm like, and my mom she wore the pants in the relationship, honestly. Like, my dad was more like, whatever your mom says. And I'm like, why can't it be whatever you say? Like, why? Like, okay. But so every time, we'd have to ask my mom, and she was kind of always tough on us. So I don't know if y'all remember, on Sunday nights, we used to cruise Military Drive in the South Side. All the cars would line up and you would just cruise up and down Military, just people hanging out. So me and my friends, we're like, yeah, let's go to Military. So here we are, like 8th grade, 9th grade. She would take off in her mom's car and she would pick me up.
I was going to say, who had the car?
Yeah, she would steal her mom's car and she'd call me. Like, we'd plan it all. Like, I'd stay the whole weekend over there. And then Sunday, my mom would pick me up. And she'd be like, don't forget our plan. And I'm like, I know, I won't forget. So, I'd plan everything like, all right, I'm going to bed. And I would lock my door from my room. And then like about 12 o'clock, my friend would come and she would take my bedroom screen off and she'd be like, all right, let's go. So I'm like, all right. I would come home probably like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, before my mom would get up for work. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I would come home. So finally my little sister caught on. So then she started blackmailing me. And I'm like, oh, gosh. So yeah, so then that had to stop because she was blackmailing me.
So was it just cruising, or did you guys were drinking, or?
Yeah,
or
we would
anything other
cruise
stuff?
up and down Military, just find random people and they'd be like, oh, how old are y'all? We're like, oh, like 16, 17. So then we'd go from there. We end up at somebody's house and then, start drinking there. And then,
Did you get into like smoking weed and stuff?
at that time, no, I didn't. I didn't get into it. They would, but I was like, no, I was still kind of like scared, but I was trying to test my limits, but still, I was still kind of vigilant of what I was doing. Cause I was like, I want to make it home alive. And the crazy thing is being that young, like sneaking out, I would be like, man, God, like watch over me while I go do this. Like not knowing that at that time, like God is not where sin is at.
Yeah.
Now I know that. But at the
Yeah.
time, I would pray to God, like, man, God, get me home safe. Like, I know what I'm doing is wrong, but, protect me and bring me back home.
Yeah. You still had a little bit of a fear. Yeah.
I still had some
Yeah.
fear there, yeah. But did it stop me? No, I did that for a while.
So growing up Catholic, did your parents instill at least somewhat good morals in you and stuff? Like, did they try teaching you kind of right from wrong?
Yeah, they did. My mom and dad, they were, they taught me, right from wrong and stuff like that. It was kind of hard to take in like what they would teach because I was like kind of confused. But then I was like, well, how are y'all going to church if y'all are drinking? So I would think about stuff like that, but I'm like, well, y'all are doing it, so I'm gonna do my own thing too. I'm gonna drink. So it's kind of like I kind of followed a little bit on what they're doing, like they're drinking and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
You were following the example that they were putting forth. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, well, you're telling me not to do this, but like you're doing this.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, all right, whatever. But so I didn't really get too much out of it because I'm like, you're doing the same thing. So
Yeah.
But it was enough to know that you were doing wrong.
yeah, it was enough to know that I was doing wrong. Yeah.
Okay. And so then what led up to you getting knocked up at 17?
Um,
So you're doing this, because you said you're doing this around 15, 16 or so?
yeah. So I was like doing this like about 15, 16. And then I met my son's father. I got in a relationship with him.
From cruising or from school or from where?
No, I actually met him at River Center Mall. Being at the mall, just doing nonsense things. So I met him at River Center Mall. Met him there. We had a relationship. I probably got pregnant like maybe a couple of months, like right after
Oh,
we met.
wow.
Yeah. So I got pregnant.
So how was that as a teen pregnancy? Were you pretty shocked? Were you?
I was terrified. I was terrified to tell my mom because I knew she would probably beat the living lights out of me. So I was terrified. I wrote her a note. I left it in her jacket before she went to work. So when she went to work, she wasn't around me. So when she would get to work, she would read the letter that I was pregnant. And I actually skipped school that day. I told my brother, I was like, come pick me up. So I told him, what was going on. He's like, Mom is going to beat the crap out of you. I'm like, I know. I was like, so you got to come get me. So, yeah, I stayed at my brother's until I think later on that night, she called my brother. And my brother's like, she's okay. She's here at the house. I have her here just to kind of let things cool down and stuff.
Yeah.
And, I was scared to tell my mom, but I was hurt to tell my dad because my dad was very soft. My dad was very lovable. He was just always understanding, never raised his hand at us ever, never yelled at us, anything, very soft spoken. My mom, on the other hand, was just completely different. So I was very, very terrified.
So
and it was rough.
Did she yell at you? Did she get all mad at you?
Yeah, she did. She was upset. She was very, very upset because she was like, I was trying to save you from this. That's why I was so tough on you and strict because I didn't want this to happen. And then it ends up happening. And I'm like, well, if you would have just let me have freedom, then I wouldn't have been sneaking out and doing all these things. And so, I would put the blame on her, but it wasn't her. It was more me.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
And what did the boyfriend think when you got pregnant?
I I mean, I guess he was like,
His reaction was he
like, all right,
upset?
like he was happy, but he lived a broken life too. Like they lived kind of house to house. His dad was murdered.
Oh, wow.
His whole like background family stuff is gangs, drugs, stuff like that. So it was completely different. We were two different worlds. Like I didn't live anything the way they lived. They lived very, just their mindset, like poverty mindset was just completely different. I didn't live that way. We had, I had everything growing up as a child. We had a roof over our head always. We weren't
Stability.
Yeah, our stability was completely different from theirs. They didn't have lights sometimes. They didn't have food sometimes. So it was different. So, my mom would ask me like, why? Like, why? Like, what made you go to this? Like, you didn't live like that. I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I was getting what the question is. Being young and pregnant, you were never pressured with abortion from the boyfriend, from your mom, or yourself.
No.
You ever have those thoughts?
No, I wasn't. I had already made up my mind. Like I was like, okay, I got myself in this situation. Like I'm gonna have him. I'm not gonna abort him. Like
Okay.
it's not.
Did it even cross your mind at all?
It never. Yeah, that never crossed my mind at all. I was just like, I got myself in the situation, so I'm gonna do what I can for my son. Like I'm not gonna just abort, because it's not the baby's fault. So
Yeah.
So I was like, no. So, but yeah, never really.
And how long did this relationship with this guy last?
I was with their dad for 5 years.
Oh, okay, for a while.
Yeah. I
You
was
say
with
their
him.
dad. Did you have another child with him?
So then I had my second son. I had my second son, Joel. So I had my son when I was 18, and then I dropped out of high school. I dropped out my senior year. I was like 3 months shy off graduating, but it got real hard. Dealing with a preemie because I had him early.
Oh, okay.
So he had complications. So I was, I was young and I was trying to deal with that. And my mom was she was there for me, but she wanted me to take on that full responsibility because she's like,
you need to do it on your own.
You need to do it on your own. You got yourself in the situation. You have to do it. So, I had to step up. So I was like, okay, well, I have to do what I have to do. He had a lot of, specialist appointments and stuff because he was born really early. He only weighed 3 pounds when I had him.
He was little.
So he was tiny. And
was he in the hospital for a while?
Yeah, he was in the hospital for about 2 weeks after I had him. So I had to leave him there. So that was tough.
Yes.
He was hooked up to all these monitors and I was, freaking out. I was a young teen mom.
Yeah.
I just see him in his little incubator and he's so tiny and I could see all the little veins, in his chest. And I was like, oh my God. So I would just cry. And the nurse was like, no, like he's fine. He's doing really good. And after 2 weeks, he just,
he thrived.
He thrived. Like they were like, man, he just doubled in his weight. He started eating well. So I was able to take him home. So it was tough because we were both young parents. And then I kind of moved in with his mom. I moved in with them.
Oh, okay. So you left home.
I left home.
Okay.
Because I was like, okay, well, I need to do this on my own. Like I wanted that family. So I'm like, okay, so I'm going to do that. I moved in with them. Try to do that there. She was kind of tough on me too. She kind of helped every now and then, his mom. But it was more of like, you guys, y'all have to deal with it. Like this is y'all's child. Y'all got to deal with it. And I said, okay. So, we tried to do what we can, but he was still childish. He was still doing his own thing. He was really into basketball. So that was his thing. So I would, kind of stay at home and he would take off and go do that, just being a kid still. And here I was, a young mom trying to take on this full responsibility with the preemie and he was still out there doing his own thing. And it was bad. It was kind of bad. But I stuck it out for about a year until my son was a year. Then it got abusive, mentally and physically. So that's kind of when I left. I was like, you know what, no more. That's actually when I started working at HEB and I met Michelle, my sister-in-law, Mike's sister. So I dropped out of school, started working to support my son. So then, she found out. So she's like, oh, come move in with me. She's like, you shouldn't be with, somebody who's, being abusive to you and treating you like that. So I said, yeah, you know what? So I gathered myself and it was hard to just leave that because I thought I left him and I wanted to, I wanted that relationship with him. But it was just lust pretty much. So I left, went with her, lived there with her and raised my son there. And I helped her with her kids. And, until finally it started getting out of hand because then I started partying there. So I had my son and I was partying and I was kind of drinking, doing that. My son was there. I would take care of him. I would not never neglect him, but I would, put him to bed and then we'd go outside and like she lived on like an acre land. So we throw these big, massive parties. Like everybody from HEB would come, like all the general managers, like everybody. Like everybody was there. Like it would get crazy. We'd have kegs and liquor and all types of stuff. So we'd be out there just partying. Until finally I was like, you know what? Like I kind of realized, I'm like, what am I doing with myself? Like, what am I teaching my son? So I was like, you know what? I need to go home. Like, I need to go back home. Like, I need to get my life together. Like, this is not right. So after about a year living with her, 2 years maybe, I went back home and I was like, okay, I got to get myself. I started setting goals for myself. Like, okay, I need to get back to school. So I went to Career Point. I went there, finished classes there. I graduated through there. I got my degree in medical office specialist.
Nice.
So I finished there and I was like, okay, 1 degree done. So I finished that. By then, I was still kind of seeing their dad a little bit. So at a distance, but I kind of was still going back because I still wanted that relationship there. And I already knew Mike. I had already met him and I was kind of interested in him, but then a part of me still wanted that family.
Right, because that's your children's father. Yeah.
So I was kind of like both. And then, but me and Mike were just friends at the time, but I still wanted, to be with their dad. And then I stopped talking to Mike for a while because I hadn't seen him because I went back home. So then kind of went back with my son's dad, where I ended up getting pregnant again. He got into some trouble, so he went to jail. So there I was pregnant with my second son and he was in jail. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So here I go again. So I'm like, why do I keep doing this to myself? Like, it's horrible. So I actually gave birth maybe like 2 weeks right before, or he got out and then 2 weeks later I gave birth. Okay. So he made it home like just in time for me to give birth.
How did he feel about that, knowing that you were pregnant now with the second? Was he like still,
Yeah, he was still like, okay, yeah. Like that's what he wanted because he didn't want us to break up, but I left because of the physical abuse that was there. And it was too much. So he actually was upset that I left him. So he was still trying to get back with me. And I'm like, no, like, I don't want to do this no more when back then. So I was like, no. And so finally I was like, okay, I guess we'll give it a second chance, so then I ended up getting pregnant. So, and he was happy about that because he felt like he didn't want me to be with anybody else. I was just like his and that was it. Very possessive, like just, it was just kind of horrible to live like that for all, those 5 years that I did. So it was rough. So after I had my second son, we got an apartment together. And I pretty much worked the whole time. He sat at home and smoked weed all day while I was working.
Was he with the kids?
He was with the kids. He was with the boys. Yeah. Jordan was probably about 2, 3. My son Joel was a couple of months, maybe not even a year yet. I was working. I was working in a doctor's office and I was trying to get my career going. And I was like, so I was dealing with him and trying to, work and, make money for my kids because he wasn't. He was just a bum. Yeah, just there doing nothing.
So was that the final straw? Is that why?
Yeah, after a while, it was crazy because it was like one morning, like I woke up and I opened my eyes and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what? Like, why am I in this situation again? So after that, it was like completely changed. Like I had no feelings for him. Like they just completely disappeared. I'm just like, I'm done. Like I am done. And it actually happened, like the timeline of everything, the way it happened, it was all perfect because I ended up getting evicted because of him. So that's not good getting evicted, but it was good because that was my way to get away.
Right. It was easier to separate. Yeah.
Yes. And my mom's like, I don't want him here. Don't even think that he can come here. You can come back with the boys, but you don't bring him. My mom just did not approve of him.
Yeah.
None of my family did. But that was my choice. And I was just like, well, I love him. Like I want to be with him. And so they kind of just went with it because of me. But yeah, so finally I got evicted and I went back home. I was like, look, you can't go to my mom's. Like my mom doesn't want you there. So he went his own way, but he was already heavy. Like he got into heavier drugs. Because by then I was smoking weed with him. He pretty much introduced me more to the weed. So we would smoke together a lot. And then he started doing heavier drugs. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not
into that.
I'm not into that stuff. So then I think like the last time he got into some trouble and he was like, come get me. The cops are looking for me. I was like, I'm not putting myself into that situation. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you got yourself into that, you get yourself out of it. And then that was it. December of 2000 and I want to say 2009. He ended up going to prison for 30 years. He has 30 years, so he's still in prison right now. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's still in prison. This December will be 15 years. Yeah, so he left, he went to prison, and I felt bad, but then I didn't. I was kind of like thinking, God, like, man, thank you, God, for taking him out of my life, because he was like, if you leave me, like, I'll find you. I'll find you. I'll find where you're at. He's like, you're not gonna take my kids away from me. You're not gonna be with nobody. So he was threatening me.
He's a crazy guy.
He's very, very crazy.
So did he kill somebody? Is that how he got 30 years or?
No, he didn't. Yeah, no, just more of some other aggravated assault charges. Yeah.
So at that time that he got locked up, how old were the kids?
My son was 4, and Joelle was, I want to say maybe like 2 years old.
Okay, so the 2-year-old probably didn't really
No.
know much, but the 4-year-old, how did he take it? Did he kind of understand?
He did. He knew that his dad was leaving. He didn't know too much about the jail, but he knew his dad was leaving because he was very, very, very close to his dad. They did have a tight relationship. Like, he wasn't a bad father as to taking care of them, but showing them the right things of life, it just, he lacked in that area. But because he didn't have that growing up, so I guess that kind of downfall to him. And he was doing the same thing to our kids. So, I was glad that he left. I was sad for the boys because I knew it was going to be hard for them, but I knew that, we would make it out. Like, we would be fine. So
your oldest is probably what, like 18 or so?
Right now he's 18.
Okay. So has he tried to keep a relationship with them in prison, like write letters or?
Yeah, the dad will write to them every now and then. He'll write letters and stuff. I think it's been a while. I think it's been about 3 years since we've heard from him, and he'll call every now and then to talk to my son. And he'll just say, Dad, when you come out, I want you to come to church and stuff like that. And his dad's just like, oh, okay, yeah. So
your son is kind of hopeful for a relationship.
Yeah, he's very, very hopeful. My other son's kind of like, yeah, I'm not going. But my oldest is just like, when Dad comes out, like, I want to get an apartment for us. Like, I want to live with my dad. And I'm like, okay. And my other son's like, yeah, nope, I'm staying here with Dad, because Mike's actually he's known Jordan since he was actually 1 year old. So Mike's actually been in my children's lives since literally they were little babies.
Yeah.
So
the youngest considers Mike dad.
Yes,
That's dad.
That is
to
Dad.
him. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you worried at all? Like, when he gets out, he's going to cause trouble?
A little bit, but not too much. He does know that I'm married. I've moved on. I have other children. He knows that. Just because of the I guess, like, his background side the side that I know of him. So I'm kind of a little bit, but not too much. But I know my son, I'm more worried for my son to go with him, because I don't want my son he's never known that kind of a lifestyle. And I don't want him to.
Well, he has all these hopes and dreams, and they're going to be shattered when he sees the real.
Yes.
Truth, yeah.
Yes. So,
but I mean, he probably wouldn't be eligible for parole for probably still a long time, right?
I believe it's, I think it's next year, or if not, it's this December.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So my son's so hopeful, like, because he'll talk to his grandma, and his grandma's like, your dad's coming out. And I'm just like, I'm telling him that, like, just don't get his hopes up, because he starts planning all these things. And then I know that it kind of crushes him, because then he's like, if it doesn't happen. So I'm just kind of like, so I try not to let her really talk to them too much, because she starts telling them these things. And I'm like, tell them that, like, it's gonna crush them. So
yeah.
But
I mean, that's tough for him. Yeah, I mean, he's longing for this relationship with his dad. And
he does. He tells Mike, he's like, I pray for my dad. I want my dad to get saved. I want him to come to our church. I'm like, I don't about our church, but maybe another church. I was like, well, I don't know about our church, but yeah, maybe one of the fellowship churches.
But yeah, I mean, you don't wish him evil. You just it's like, well, yeah, let's just
give a distance.
Yes, yeah.
Your dad's still stuck in 2005, and we're like in 2023.
Yeah.
So I'm like, your dad's still stuck in that era. So yeah, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so let's go backtrack and okay, so you have 2 kids. You're a single mom. This guy gets locked up, and so at that time, you said you're starting to talk to Mike already.
Yeah, I was talking to Mike.
Like dating or just kind of hanging out?
We were kind of like hanging out. We would kind of see each other off and on. Because by then the dad went to jail, so I was living at my mom, so I was working. So I started, clubbing, going to the bars, stuff like that. My cousins, my friends, and then I would always run into Mike at the clubs all the time. We would run into each other
on the dance floor.
Yeah, like we'd run into each other, and then we'd separate, and then like we'd be walking out, and he'd be like, "You want to go to my house?" I'm like, "Sure." All right. So then, we end up, I'd go stay the night with Mike, and it was kind of like that every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
We did that for a while, for a couple of years, just kind of hanging out.
Did you have other relationships as well? Because you say messed up relationships in your list. So
yeah. So after me and Mike would see each other every now and then. It was weird because we would hang out with each other, then we wouldn't see each other for like a whole year. So then during that, I met another guy. I actually ended up having another baby. I got pregnant. I had my daughter. That relationship was another failed relationship. It was just. Failed. He was, military. He had a whole family that I didn't know about.
Oh my goodness.
So here I was, pregnant. And then, 6 months later, finding out like, oh, okay, he's actually married and has a whole family. And yeah, he's getting stationed in Hawaii. And I'm like, what the heck? So I was like a slap in the face. I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. Like, here's another relationship and it's just failed. Like, here I am with my 3rd kid and fatherless again. Like,
yeah,
I'm going to be raising my kids alone. So gave birth to her, and I didn't tell him he was stationed in Hawaii, and I just I didn't want him to come looking for her, looking for me, because I was just upset at the fact that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, just kind of left that alone and just did what I could for, the kids, because here I am now with 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to raise her.
So he left, so he's not a part of their life, or her life?
He kind of comes and goes.
Okay,
yeah. So he knows about her now.
He knows about her now. He knew I was pregnant when he left.
Oh, okay.
But I just didn't tell him, when I had her and stuff.
Oh, okay.
I just, because I was upset at the fact that I had found out, the whole family stuff. I was like, what the heck? Like,
yeah,
you have a whole family. Like,
yes.
that's
messed
did you
up.
fail to forget to tell me that? What the heck? So it was insane. So I thought about, all these things, I was like, I'm gonna call your commander and tell him all this stuff.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I was like, yeah, no, I just don't look for us. Like, just leave us. But yeah, so we just kind of left that. But yeah, and then right after I had her, like a month later, she was a month old. I get in contact with Mike again. So Mike's like, what the heck? He's like, you had 2, now you have another one. He's like, you're just popping out kids left and right. So there I was with my 3rd kid. So he pretty much, after that, after I had my 3rd daughter, that's kind of when me and Mike started getting more on a serious kind of note.
Mm-hmm.
We started now we were more back in the dating scene, so he pretty much raised my daughter since she was a month old.
Oh, wow.
Oh, so it was right after you had her.
Right after I had her, yeah.
So he stepped up, no problem.
Yeah, he was there. Yeah, he was like, what the heck? It's like, man, I leave for like a year and you pop out another one. I'm like, yep. So
okay, so you guys are in a relationship for, Mike was kind of off with his dates. Sounded like 7 years, 8 years before you got married?
Yeah, we got married
Somewhere
in 2016.
Okay, and so you guys are dating. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, he said during that time that he was kind of an awful person. He said that he would
leave for the weekend.
Leave for a weekend with his friends, and I mean, we all know what that means. But
yeah,
I mean, so how did you take that? Why did you stick around?
I don't know. With Mike, it was different. Like, I saw something in him that I felt that we could, actually have like a family. Like, because I knew when he was when he wasn't drinking, when he was like actually there, you know, he was a genuine person. Like he was real genuine and stuff. Like I could see this, like the softness in him. Like he cared. And I loved him. I really, really loved him. And I wanted him, you know, to do better for himself.
So you were just holding out hope that.
So I was
things would
holding
get
on
better?
hope. Yeah. And I was just like, you know, so a part of me was just like, what if I just let him do these things to me? Like, just so I know that I'll still be with him. Like, I'll just be okay with it. I'll let him, you know, treat me like this, like go out and leave me here. Like he would leave me all weekend and I would just sit home and cry and cry. And my kids would, you know, they would come and they would hug me and they would cry with me. And they didn't even know why I was crying, but they would just sit on the floor and cry with me. And and it was a rough time.
Did you ever have any feelings of being unwanted, kind of rejection from him?
I did. I just, you know, I would just tell him why do you do this to me? Like, you know, all the relationships that I've been through already, like they've all failed. And then here I am again with you. And then you're like pushing me away. Like you're treating me this way. Like why? And he would just tell me, well, I'm not ready to settle down. Like I'm not ready. I want to do, you know, I still want to do my own thing. Cause he was a big, you know, partier. Like he loved to go out and party and drink. And I did too, but then a part of me was more like I wanted to be with him, so I kind of pushed that to the side, and I'm like, well, I want to be with you, like, or why don't we do it together? And he was like, well, yeah, but I guess he didn't want his like side chicks to see, so he was like,
You're cramping his style.
Yep. So he would kind of just like, nah. So he would do the great escape, like he would come and try to hurry up and grab his stuff, but as soon as I would open the door, like getting home, I could smell like the whole bottle of cologne. I'm like, man, I was like, oh, it was on after that. I was so upset. Oh my God.
He thought it was the contacts and the glasses gone. Little did he know.
Oh man, I could smell the cologne. Like I would just open the car door and I could smell it, like the trail of cologne. I'm like, so it would crush me because I already knew. And he did this for a long time.
Yeah.
Did you ever cry out to God at that point?
And you know, I did. And I told him that. And I said, you know what's crazy? I said, I never had a relationship with God. I never stepped foot in like a Christian church, nothing like that. Never got anything from the Catholic stuff. I said, and it was just, I would sit there on my knees and I would just bawl and I would just ask God, like, why? Like, why me? Like, help me to get him to love me and love the kids, like help him to be a better man, like so that, you know, we would have a better relationship. So I would cry out to God frequently when he would do that to me.
Did you ever feel that God was not listening to you because it lasted for so long? Did you get frustrated?
I would get frustrated because he did it so long, and a part of me felt like I was getting tired of it, but then I didn't want to let him go. So I would just, I would question God so much, like, why? Like, I'm a good person. Like, why do I deserve this? Like, I'm not bad. Like, I'm a single mom trying to raise my kids like the right way. I'm working. I'm trying to do everything right. Like, why? Like, so I would question him all the time.
Did you ever feel a pull to try to have a relationship with God? Maybe go back to church or go to a new church?
I thought about it. I thought about going. I had a friend at work because they would see me all the time. I would cry at work to the girls, and they would try to just be there for me. And one of the girls, she had showed me this movie, Fireproof.
Oh yes.
Yeah, she had showed me this movie, which I mean, I know we weren't married, but she had showed me this movie. She's like, you should, watch this movie with him. Maybe, maybe he'll have a change of heart after he sees this movie. And I was like, okay. And she would talk about God to me and stuff like that, but I was just like, oh, okay, So I was like, all right, I'll let me watch this movie. So one day I watched it and I sat there and I bawled my eyes out. And then I told Mike one day, I was like, you want to watch this movie? So, we kind of both watched it. So I was hopeful that he would have, that he would get something out of that. But, he still, at that time he didn't. He still kind of just did his own thing. So I was, hopeful that he would just, change from kind of seeing that and like, man, like kind of realize like, maybe I should,
I'm hurting her.
Up. Yeah. So I kind of just left it like that, and I kind of just rode with it, the whole time he did that to me.
Okay, and so he had mentioned that you were still partying too, though, at this time.
Yeah. After that, I was like, okay, well, you know what? Let's start going out together. So the kids were a little bit, they're a little bit bigger. And at that time, his dad was still kind of living there, but he was kind of like off and on. So we would leave the kids there and me and him would go out. We would go to the clubs and we would go drink and stuff. So me and him started drinking. I was more smoking. He really wasn't, but any chance I could, I would, if I would get weed, I would smoke. He would just kind of just stand around drinking. And I would, smoke or whatever. But
did you ever feel a loss or an emptiness from that life when you were doing this? Were you like, man, what are we doing?
Yeah, I did. And then I would, I would feel like an emptiness, and I would feel the same thing, like, man, what are we doing? Like, what are we teaching the kids? Like, like I want things to be better. Like I want to be married, and I want, one day I want to be able to get my own house for my kids and, stuff like that. And I knew doing that, we weren't going to get anywhere. And then our relationship was broken. So
Yeah.
it was just kind of, we were just struggling, but we were just rolling with it, I guess. So for the kids.
Yeah. So with the kid, so when he'd come back, like, on the Sunday or Monday, would you guys fight when he would come back, and then the kids would see this?
Yeah. We would.
So they knew what was going on.
Yeah. And it was more me. He was just kind of like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. But I was like,
you were holding it in all weekend.
Yes, I was like holding it all in. So I was just waiting for him to walk in that door to let him have it. And he would just be like, I'm sleepy. I don't want to hear it. Or, and I'm like, no, we're going to talk about this now. Like, and he was just like, yeah, he would just kind of like try to go sleep in the other room. He would sleep with the boys because he didn't want to hear me nagging. And I'm like, I would go in there and I'm like, oh no, you're going to hear me. So I would kind of just I would just kind of like go off on him. And it was bad. The kids, they saw a lot of things, the struggles that we went through.
And your oldest, did he ever say anything to you about it? Or did he ever seem to kind of react to the situations? They would just tell him like, Dad, why are you making Mom cry? Like, don't make Mom cry. Or, he would hug me and just tell me, Mom, it's going to be okay. Like, we love you. And so that would make me cry even more because, I didn't want them to see that because they had already, seen their dad leave, and then having to see this with Mike. So it was tough, but, I was just trying to be there for my kid. I was trying to be strong, but it was hard. I had some breaking points where I couldn't. Yeah. I had to just let it out. Because when was your first kid with Mike? When did you guys have the first kid?
What do you mean?
Because you and Mike have a kid together,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
So when was that?
I had my daughter, so I had her in 2010.
Okay, so when he had the daughter with you, there was no slowing down of this lifestyle or this kind of being a jerk or anything? Like that didn't change anything?
No, he wasn't at that time. I guess he kind of slowed down a little bit. He was still drinking and partying here and there. We were trying to get on the right foot. We were struggling, but he was trying to, do better. He was trying to get jobs and stuff like that. It was hard for him to just stay in one job, because he would stay out late partying. So then he would lose a job, and then there he goes again trying to find something else. And here I was stable at my job. I was, but at that time I was making like minimum wage. So we were barely even making
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was rough. But, when I had her, he was like so in love with Lily, like that was like his princess when I had her. So, he kind of slowed down a little bit for her. I think, he did it for her because it was his first actual baby. That was his baby girl. So, but yeah, it was pretty hard still.
Okay, and so then when the depression for Mike came in, just tell us your perspective from that situation.
That was hard watching him go through that. Just from one day to the next, one day being normal to the next day, like your whole world being like torn up, like upside down. Like he just called one day and he was crying. I'm like, what the heck? Like what happened? Like what's the matter? And he's like, I don't know, I can't stop crying. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, just stop crying. And he's like, I can't. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, it's just this feeling I have. I can't shake it off. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, what's bothering you? He really didn't want to tell me too much. So, and I'm like, well, I can't help you if you don't tell me. Like, what's wrong with you? And he's like, I don't know. Like, he
didn't even know what was wrong.
He didn't even know. So I'm like, Mike, you're scaring me. Like, what the heck? Like, because I had never seen him like that, like ever. And I rushed home and I was sitting there on the couch with him and I'm like, Mike, like talk to me, like what's the matter? Like tell me. And I'm like, I can try to help you the best I can. And he just like, he wouldn't stop crying. He would just cry and cry. And I mean, that went on for like weeks and weeks.
Oh
and
my
months. Yeah.
goodness.
It just, I'm like, Mike, I have to take you to the doctor. Like, I don't know what to do with you. Like, I can't, I'm trying to go to work. I'm like worried about you. I can't even function at work because I'm like thinking about you. Like, are you okay? Like, he wasn't sleeping. Like, it was rough. It was a rough couple of months dealing with that depression.
What did the kids think?
They kind of just, I think they just rode with it because we were just all trying to go through everything. They would see him and they would just kind of ask me like, Mom, what's wrong with Dad? Like, why does he look like that? But he, I would just tell him, oh, Daddy's, he's feeling sick. He's feeling sick. Dad's going to get better. He's going to get better. And they're like, okay. But they didn't know. They didn't really know what he was going through.
Yeah.
But, I would just try to, they would ask me questions, but I would try to just kind of go around it the best. I didn't want to tell them what, detail was going on. I didn't want to scare them too much. So, but it was rough dealing with that. Seeing him go through that, it was hard. It was heartbreaking.
So he kind of explained a little bit about the depression and how bad it was, but he didn't, during the break, we were talking about, he was telling us about how much weight he had lost. Mm-hmm. And you said it was 20 pounds or so. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he had a very severe case of depression where, I mean, it was 6 months to lose 20 pounds. He said, his hair was all messed up and grown out. And so you're basically just watching this guy just kind of wither away, deteriorate over 6 months. I mean, that's pretty drastic. I mean, usually it's over a year, 2 years, 3 years. This is like, boom, all over 6 months.
It was fast. Yeah. It was so fast. Like, I would try to get him to eat and he would barely eat anything. And he would eat and he would just he would puke everything up. Like, he just couldn't hold anything down.
He couldn't even hold it down.
He couldn't hold anything down. He was very, very, very tormented. He couldn't sleep at night. And I would try to stay up with him, but I was like, I have to get the kids to school and daycare and work. Like, it was hard.
So since you had a little bit of experience with the Catholic Church and stuff, did it ever cross your mind that it might be something spiritual, not physical?
I mean, not really, but then I would think about, like, I would watch all those exorcist movies and stuff, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, maybe like something like that. I don't know. I didn't know what to think, but I'm just like, man, I don't know, because I'd seen so many. I liked horror movies, so I would always watch, some crazy stuff, and I was like, man, because he would like say some things, and it would kind of like freak me out. And I'm like, man, so I would start thinking like, what the heck? Like, what did you do? Like, what stuff did you get into? But yeah, it was a hard time to go through with him.
So, okay, so when he goes to church and he comes out of it as a new man, like, what was your thoughts of seeing that switch?
It was.
Did you not believe it? Did you?
I didn't believe it because I'm like, okay, like, this is just gonna be a couple of weeks, and then you're gonna want to like go drink again and party. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that no more. And I'm like, okay, whatever, we'll see. So I still kept drinking and I still kept partying. I think after, he changed and he had got delivered from all that stuff. I kind of felt more like now I had the upper hand. So I was like, well, I'm going to do what I want to do now. Like, I stuck it out, by your side through all that. Like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. So I kind of started doing my own thing. And I would see him and I'm like, yo, you'll come back drinking. And I would even tell him like, come on, let's go drink. Like, they're calling, like, let's go to the club. Like, let's go hang out. Let's go drink. Or somebody's like, my family's having a barbecue. Let's go. They want us to go over. Let's go party over there. And he's like, nah, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm telling you, like, I don't want to do that no more. I'm done. I'm done with that lifestyle. And I'm like, okay, well, that's you. I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah. So
I did it for a long time.
And so what was it that finally opened your eyes to, oh, wow, this guy is true?
So what made me like realize like, okay, like he's not playing was I guess we started kind of not drifting, but he was always at church, like constantly, like on Wednesdays, on Sundays. There was outreach, there was stuff going on at church. So I started seeing him, being more involved. And I was like, what the heck? Like, don't forget you have me, like I'm still here and stuff. So he's like, I told you, like, I'm not playing, like I'm done. Like, I don't want to do any of that stuff anymore. Like, I'm completely done with it. Like, God saved me, like, and this is what I want to do. Like, I want to go to church. And he's like, you can come with me. Like, you come. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, that's for you, not for me.
Yeah.
So I kind of just left it, and, and I just let him do his own thing. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to do my own thing. So I would still, hang out and party. And so we were kind of living 2 different lifestyles. Like, he was going to church and I was over here still drinking and partying and stuff. So it was rough.
What did the kids think of the dual lives?
I think they were confused. They were kind of sad because, I would always push the kids to go, with my husband, because I didn't want them to kind of see, the way I was acting, like when I was out, like drinking and stuff like that and smoking. So I would always send them with Mike, like all the time. I'm like, yeah, go with your dad. So I would dress them up and then I would just send them with Mike because I didn't want them to see me doing all, this craziness in the background. So
do you think some of your doubt of his genuineness, do you think it came from your experience with your parents in the Catholic Church? Like, do you think like, I've seen my parents kind of go to church and party and still do all that? Like, this isn't whatever you're doing. It's obviously different.
Yeah.
What he was doing, the Christian church and the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
But do you think that played any part in it? The history of the Catholic Church?
No, not really. Because I didn't really, honestly, I didn't take nothing in from none of that, like at all. So I was just kind of like, yeah, not really. I just was like, okay, whatever. Well, if that's what you want to do, go ahead.
And so, okay. So then what about, all those prayers, or when you called out to God, when you're asking why God, why is this guy doing this to me, or why am I'm better than this? It never came back to you like, oh, maybe I should try to, maybe this is God answering. You never thought about that either?
When he went through what he was going through, like the depression and stuff, after a while, like I would sit there and I would think, I'm like, man, like I would pray to God all the time, like to help Mike to get away from that lifestyle. So I was like, man, maybe that was God answering my prayer. And he, did that to Mike. Like he made Mike not made him go through that depression, but he kind of slowed him down and kind of made him open his eyes. So I was like, man, maybe God did, like he heard my prayers, because after that, Mike was completely changed.
He was different. Yeah.
Different. And I kind of like, I wanted the old Mike still, like a part of me, because I was like, you're boring. Like, come on, like, let's do stuff.
You're boring.
And he didn't. He just wanted to be in church. I'm like, I don't want to go to church. Like, what the heck? Let's go out. Let's do stuff. Like, he was completely different, because the old Mike was like, let's go to the clubs, let's go to the bar. Like, we would drink and like, we would have fun. And like, now this new Mike was boring. And I was like, hi, you're like an old man. You just want to go to sleep. Like, that's boring. So, I just kind of left it like that. I was like, all right, whatever. So that's why, we lived 2 different lives for a long time. But I felt that emptiness though, being like that, because I was like, man, my poor kids, like they're living 2 different lives. Like with, they're stuck in the middle of us living these 2 lives.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was hard. And it was like, I was like, how am I going to make this relationship work? Like, he's going to church. So I even thought about leaving him. I'm like, maybe I should just leave. Like, I don't want to go to church. So.
And this was after you guys were married?
This was, because we got married in 2016. After he started, when he got saved, we got married in 2016. And I was like, all right, because he was like, we have to get married. I'm like, okay. So then, we got married. I was like, all right, that's what I wanted. I was like, okay. But then he was like, yeah, but we got to start coming to church. And I'm like, I don't want to go to church. Like, we can still get married, but I don't have to go to church. So.
What did you think of the church when you started going to? Because you said that you went for a little bit. Yeah. What did you think of the church?
So we went to the church, and he had already been going. I kind of went every now and then, but it was huge. It was a big church, and I was very quiet. I was like kind of shy, reserved. So I was kind of like, so then I would sit there, and then he would sit in the very front. So I'm like, God, like really? Like, why the front? Why can't we sit in the back? Like, so nobody will see me.
Yeah.
And his sister was already there. So she was like, I have your seats like right here in the front. And I'm like, oh, of course you would. So I'm like, all right. So then there we go, sitting in the front, and, me, him, and, the kids would sit there. And, I would listen to the preaching, but I still, my mind was still, it wasn't fully focused on the preaching. It was still all over the place. Like I was still trying to grasp everything. So I was kind of like, all right, I guess I was just going to make him happy. Like, okay, maybe I'll get him off my back. Like I'll just go so there'll be peace, for the kids. Yeah. So I did that for a while, and then like 3 months. And then I was like, I can't, like, I'm sorry, I can't do this. So I kind of I stopped going.
So what was it that made you change your mind of giving it a shot? Was it the emptiness? You've been tired of kind of the separate lives?
Yeah, just the separate lives. So, I started going with him, and then, I felt that emptiness, and I was like, okay, and I knew he was trying to make things work, for me and the kids. So I was like, okay. So then I went, and then I just fell off. I'm just like, I don't feel anything. Like, I don't feel anything here. I don't feel that, I'm not getting anything out of the preachings, like nothing. Like, he's like, well, why? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not into it. Like the way you
weren't
are.
open.
Yeah. Like I wasn't open. Yeah. I was just, and there would be different people to like come pray for me. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. Like they would tell me, you don't want to go up there? I'm like, no, I'm good. So I was just like, and I didn't want that. Every single time I would go, they would ask me like, you want to go up there? I'm like, no, like I'm good. So
yeah,
it was just after a while I was getting annoyed.
Yes.
They kept asking me, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to. And then of course we were in the very front, and then I felt like they were always lock eyes with me, and I'm like, oh, God, I don't want them looking at me. So
so when you came to the Kirby Church, then what was your thoughts?
So we left Marbach Church, moved over here to Foster Road, and then me and Mike were still, we were struggling still. So I was like, okay, well, if you go to the church over here, then I'll go to church with you, because I wanted him to I didn't want to go to the big church anymore. I wanted something smaller. I didn't want where all eyes were always going to be on me, and I didn't want that constant pressure. So he was like, all right. So, that's when we were driving down Kirby and we saw the church, and Mike's like, okay. And I was like, well, you go first. Tell me how it is. And then I'll go. And he's like, what? Like, you said you were going to go with me. I'm like, yeah, but you go first and then tell me, how it is. And then I'll go with you the following Sunday. So he's like, all right. So he ends up going, and, he comes home and he was like, yeah, it was good. Like it was really, it was small.
Small,
it was just
intimate.
It was just Pastor TJ and Des. So he's like, yeah, I was like, it was just like me in there. And I think, I don't know if there was other, like 2 other women or something. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I can deal with something small like that. So I was like, all right, so I'll give it a shot. So I started going. I went, and, I went to church for a little bit, and then I was still kind of, I guess, still on the edge about going. I was like, I don't know how I feel yet. I was like kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I'm like, I don't know yet. Then the pandemic hit. So then that was kind of like my time to run away. Okay, this is good for me this is my time to kind of back off, because that's kind of when the churches kind of had to close down a little bit.
Yes, yeah.
So, they were doing services through live stream. So for me, I felt like that was my time to escape. I was like, okay, now I can fall off. I can just move back, because that's not there anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't have to go, because I was still battling if I really, really wanted to go.
Yeah, you weren't committed.
I wasn't committed. And then it was more of Mike was kind of, it was more of Mike forcing me. And I didn't want that. And I knew it was because he was desperate. He wanted me to be there with him, because he saw all the other men with their wives, and I wasn't there with him. So I know it was just, he wanted that. He wanted that too. And I was just like, I don't want to. So, he kept going, and I fell off again for a little bit during the pandemic. So I stepped back, and Mike was still going. And then a couple of months later, Mother's Day, that was the first day I came back on Mother's Day service. Came back, and that same day I got saved, and I haven't left since then.
So what was it about that service? Just God touched you that day?
Yeah, I was already going through things before. I guess during that time that I fell off, I was battling some stuff in my mind, and I was just kind of going through it, but I didn't really say too much. I didn't really express it. I just kind of held it in. And I was just like, man, I'm tired of this. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, living 2 different lives is just insane. It's tough. It's time consuming. It was hard on me with trying to work, raise kids. I was trying to still be there for Mike, and I was just like, it's hard. It's hard living a double life. I'm like, I don't know how people can live double lives. That's hard. I'm like, I can't do this. So it was really, really tough going through that. So I was just like, you know what? I'm completely done. I was like, God, I'm done. I'm ready. And it was more on my time and God's timing, not Mike's timing, because he was just trying to force me to come. And I'm like, stop forcing me. Like when when I'm ready, I'm ready. Like, I'll
Yes,
go.
yeah.
Don't force me. Like, just let it be God's timing, not yours. You're not God. So I would tell him, because he was so desperate for me to go. And I'm like, just leave me alone. Like, stop telling me about God. Like, just leave me alone. Because he was constantly talking about God and come to church and this. And I'm like, Mike, shut up. Like, leave me alone. So I would get annoyed with him after a while. But I was just, going through all that. So finally I was just like, okay. So I went back Mother's Day, and then I got saved during that service.
Okay,
Nice. Praise God.
So that's good. So so at that moment, then God answered your kind of your wants, your heart's desires of change, and probably going through mind battles and depression or whatever you were going through. God broke through all that stuff, and that was Mother's Day this year, last year, or
It was Mother's Day 2000. It was Mother's Day 2020. Yeah.
2020? Okay.
Yeah,
So it's
2020. Yeah.
been a while.
So we were still in the pandemic.
We were still in the pandemic.
Yeah,
Yeah. During right when it hit, I kind of fell off because that's when everything had
Yeah.
closed. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna kind of.
Yeah, that was like in March.
Yeah, it was like in March. So I kind of lay low for a little bit and stuff, and I was still kind of hesitant. I was like, but then I was during those 2 months that I was home doing my own thing. I was like, man, I knew it wasn't right. And I didn't want my kids to have to go through that again, seeing us like that. So I was like, no, I really need to get myself together.
So you have here that you lost your mom in 2016. So how did that?
Was this before you guys got married or after?
I lost my mom January 2nd of 2016. Me and Mike got married January 31st, 2016.
Okay.
So we got married in the same month.
So how'd you handle that?
It was tough.
Was it a surprise? Was she sick?
She was sick. She had cancer. When we found out, she was already stage 4.
Oh, wow.
Ovarian
Right.
cancer. Yeah. So it was really late into
Yeah.
her being ill. It was rough. It was rough seeing my mom go through that sickness, having, just seeing her in a bed when she was a very independent, strong woman, just constantly doing everything, to seeing her now just, in this bed, not able to get up anymore. So I would go see her all the time when I could. I would go check on her and stuff, and, make sure she was good. We would kind of help out. She was already, she was really sick. So they placed her on hospice and stuff. So, we were just kind of, just all taking turns, me and my sisters, and trying to help her out and stuff.
Yeah.
So, I would, give her medicine, sponge bathe her, do stuff like that. So
Yeah, just taking care of her.
Yeah, taking care of her, making sure she was comfortable. But it was tough because she was just, she was our rock to our family. Like, very, like, I could depend on my mom. We loved each other. It was a hard, like a different kind of, like a tough love that me and my mom had. We butt heads a lot, but my mom, she was always there for me. I know she just wanted the best for us. So
Yeah.
it was tough seeing her pass away. The kids too, it was tough for them seeing her, because she was, my mom did everything for them. Cooked, she would bathe them, she would feed them, like everything.
She was a good grandma.
Oh yeah, she would pick them up from daycare, and she would call me at work, and she's like, I already picked up the kids, I already fed them, they already bathed, you just got to pick them up and go home. So I'm like, oh my God, thank you, Mom. Like, my mom was awesome. She did a lot for us.
And then you got married in the same month, a few weeks later.
We got married.
So how was it getting married and still dealing with all this grieving and stuff?
It was kind of, it was hard, but then it was comforting, because I knew my mom told me she wanted me and Mike to get married. Like, she did. She loved Mike. Like, she really liked him. And she told me, like, y'all need to get married, do what's right for the kids and stuff like that. Right before she passed away, she kind of had conversations with us. So I was like, okay, Mom, like, we will. And then, me and Mike ended up getting married. And so it was kind of, it was hard, but then it felt right, because I knew that I was doing it for my mom. So, and I loved Mike, and Mike was there for me through, when my mom was passing away. He was there for me through all that.
Well, during the grieving process of your mom, did that trigger anything? Mind battles, depression? Did it push you into drinking?
Yeah, I kind of started picking up on drinking wine. I started doing the wine. I'm like, it's just one glass of wine. And Mike's like, that's not good. And he was already, we were going to Pastor Ruby's church and stuff. So I'm like, it's just one glass of wine. Like the Bible says you can have wine. Everybody refers back to that. So
yes.
I would fight with him on that. I'm like, it says it in the Bible. So I would always pick up like wine all the time. So I would drink wine and stuff. And he's like, after a while, he kind of left me alone. Like he wouldn't say nothing. So, I was just like, it's just one glass. Like it's okay, Mike. Like it's just one. But I would try to just do that just to kind of mask, everything that I was going through. So I kind of fell into that for a little bit.
For how long? How long did it take until you kind of came to terms with her death?
Well, it's kind of backtracking. So we got married. So then, that happened for a while because that's when he was going to Pastor Ruby's, and then that's when I fell off. I stopped going to Pastor Ruby's church, and he went there for 5 years.
Yeah.
So I just completely stopped going to church because at that time I was just kind of drinking, and I kind of started hanging around with my family, my cousins and stuff. So, they were kind of there to kind of console me, like, because we were all close and stuff.
Family,
so yeah, they're family. So, I would hang out with them and party and stuff and drink with them and stuff. And I wasn't like into like drugs or like heavy drugs or nothing, but we just smoke weed. And, I would just try to forget things just for that moment. I would just try to like, so that everything would be okay. Even though I knew after the high was gone, or it would just kind of, everything was going to come right back.
Yeah, it was just going to come back.
It was just to mask it for that time.
So how long did that last until you didn't have to do that anymore?
Well, that's after that happened. Then that's when we ended up moving over here.
Okay.
To Kirby over here. So that happened pretty much for like the 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Mike was just going to Pastor Ruby's and just praying for me, and I was just doing my own thing. So finally we moved over here, and then that's kind of how we ended up at Pastor TJ's and Dez's church.
Okay. So a lot of this, it sounds like a lot of kind of your resistance during this time is somewhat triggered by what you were dealing with your mom, kind of drowning sorrows and whatnot. I mean, that's a common thing. I mean, when somebody close dies, a lot of people just can't handle it or deal with it. And they just go into that. So for you, somebody, who's been through grief and drowning their sorrows and things that aren't good for you, obviously, what would you tell somebody in that situation? Words of advice.
I would just say there's hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Even though we feel like our loved one is gone, they're not. They're always still going to be there. I just keep pressing forward. And I went through all that, and I told God, like, in a way I kind of felt like, it's just like I would thank him for taking her away, so she wouldn't feel any more pain. So I was kind of like, I was thankful, but then I was hurt because she was gone. It was hard, but just keep pressing forward. And I mean, I know it's tough losing a loved one, but I mean, at the end of time, it gets easier, and then that they're in a better place. And I know my mom accepted Jesus Christ in her heart because Mike and one of the other pastors actually came and prayed for her when she was on her deathbed.
Wow, praise God.
So I knew where my mom was going. So I had that assurance that I know she was going to be good.
Yeah.
And I knew she was going to be in a much better place than what we are here. So
yes, yeah.
That kind of stuck with me. So I was like, okay, what, that kind of helped me to push forward. So
did that click more once you got your life right with Christ? Were you like, okay, I can process this, like I can put this aside now?
Yeah,
because
definitely.
Now you have that understanding.
Now I have that understanding, like, okay, yeah.
I don't have to drown your sorrows anymore.
Yeah, I didn't have to because I knew I was just like, man, like I know where she's at and she's in a better place. Like, and I miss her I miss her dearly. Like all the time I was telling like, I miss my mom, but I would cry all the time. I would just hear a song like a Tejano song and I would start crying. Mike's like, really? And I'm like, I miss her. So, but I mean, it does get easier in time, especially once you know the truth that, I know where she's at.
Yes.
And I know she's in a better place. So now I'm just like, you know what? I'm thankful. I'm like, man, thank God. Like, I know where she's at. I know she's good. And I rather, I know she's looking down and she's looking at me, and I know all the accomplishments. I always say, like, Mom, I hope you're proud. Like, you know, me and Mike, like, we finally got married. The kids are good, you know. So we're just, I'm just thankful that, you know, they were able to pray with my mom before she passed away.
Yes,
Yeah, no,
no.
that's awesome. Okay, and so then what about words of advice for because your situation with Mike where, you know, a spouse is in church committed to Christ and the spouse is not in church, kind of resistant, that's pretty common, happens a lot. So what would you tell somebody in that situation, the woman who is kind of resistant, kind of hesitant, pushing back, like, no, I don't want to do this? What kind of advice would you tell a person?
I know it's tough, and it's just, just you have to be willing to. But I mean, if God can change, you know, my heart and through everything that I went through, I was very resistant. You know, then God can also change them. Just stay focused, and just learning to be submissive, you know, to your husband and stuff like that. It's on God's timing when you're ready to. It's two different worlds. I know it's very tough, but if you just keep pressing forward, keep your eye focused, and you know, just having your own personal relationship with God, and you know, talking to God through everything that you're going through, and God can get you. You know, He can help you get through anything. So just keep pressing forward, and I thank my husband for the continuance of the prayers that he did for me.
Yes.
So I think that's what, seeing it now, I'm just like, man, like, thank you, God, like, for having my husband pray for me, you know, for all those years. So, you know, I think the prayers, you know, helped me also to get through it. And having other sisters in church also, that helped. You know, they were always telling me that they prayed for me. So having other sisters praying for me, you know, and also giving me advice and talking to me, that helped me out so much too, to finally, you know, come to realization.
Was it part of, was it also partly that because you kind of sounded like you might have been a little stubborn? You're kind of like, no, I'm going to do this my way. Like, I'm not going to, I want to do what I want to do. Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of, so obviously part of what you're saying is you kind of got to put yourself aside and be like, no, you got to just submit, like you said. And
just kind of submit. Because I'm very headstrong person. When it comes me and Mike, I'm just like, no, I was always trying to be the dominant one. So I'm just
get that from your mom?
Yeah, from my mom, exactly. So I'm like, man, my mom passed that down to me. So I mean, and every now and then, you know, me and Mike will have our little problems. I'm like, okay, I gotta remember I'm not the alpha here. Like, okay, so I gotta learn to, you know, I gotta be submissive. But you know, God's still working on me on that part. But you know, it's tough. But yeah, just being submissive. I think that's a number one. You know, that helps out a lot.
Just having an open mind and
just
open
having
heart
an
to
open
it,
mind,
right?
yeah, and knowing the difference, because submissive would just, you know, now I know the true meaning of submissive, not not from before. Like when he would tell me, I'm like, you don't freaking run me, like I'm gonna do what I want to do. Like, who are you?
And that's the world's interpretation of submission is incorrect.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was like, you ain't running me. Like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. Like, who do you think you are telling me that, you know? So, but now knowing the, you know, the true meaning and not the worldly meaning of it, it's just completely different. So.
Well, great. Thanks for coming and sharing your testimony. It's an awesome story hearing yours and Mike's, your testimony and your lives, and the story, like I mentioned in Mike's, just kind of the little things that God kind of put in your lives along the way, and the destiny of bringing you guys together as a godly couple, and seeing how God worked in your relationship. Because I mean, the stuff that you guys went through, stuff that He said He put you through when you were dating, you guys could have obviously broken up and split off and been doing your own thing now, right? And Him praying for you and contending for you for 5 years as a Christian, like, you guys made it through a lot of major heartache, and you overcame. You know what I mean? So it's pretty awesome to see your guys' story and perseverance in your marriage. You know what I mean? In your relationship, and just all the little intricacies that God kind of laid along the way. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
it was all on His timing. So and it played out perfectly, and it's just, and I'm just, you know, to see what else God has in store for us. So
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just thankful that we made it through, you know, through all those trials. But it was tough, but we made it through.
Yes.
And only on God's strength that we made it through. So
Only by God, right?
yes, only by God. I'm like, not by me, not by Mike. It was only by God. I'm like, thank God you were in the middle, because I think we probably would have choked each other throughout half the time. It was rough, but we made it through. Thank you, Jesus.
Yes. Yes.
Well, good. You guys got an awesome story. So
Yes.
thank you for sharing it.
Yes,
Yes,
thank you for
thank you.
having me.
Thank you
Yes.
for coming on. Thank you guys for watching. Do you have anything else?
No. I'm good.
Okay. Well, thank you for watching, and join us next time.